Hello one and all, this is Hybridsteel. Thank you very much for joining me in today's Valheim video. So today we're going to be looking at foundation. Now this comes down to like the parts of base building. Most people have got it down to a fine art of how to build quickly and fundamentally, and it's all good. But at the end of the day, are you thinking about the structure of your building, or are you just hoping that you don't get attacked within the first 5 minutes building the workbench and you're being all good? So within the first sort of like the first day of building, you are literally just trying to build a little workshop, a little house to live in, and just to get all your main thoughts in one place, aren't you? That's literally how we all are when we first start. And if you haven't seen my guide, it's in the top right hand corner right now. That's my noob guide, how to play this game from the start. But one thing that a lot of people are like, I think a lot of people are missing is like when it comes down to the foundation. Some people are doing this well, others are just like, hey, I'm just going to build something and that's just how I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. That's fair enough, that's purely up to you. But at the end of the day, is it really the best way that you could be building? I'm going to go through a couple of things with you. Now, obviously, at the moment, people are playing this how they are. They want to play it a specific way. And at the end of the day, it's all good. You play this game how you like. I'm just here to just maybe give you a voice of reason. So, obviously, first off, we all know that foundation stone is probably the best way to start. Well, it is the best way to play this game anyway. If you want a solid base foundation, everyone goes for stone. Reason why is just because, in fairness, it's bloody good. You know, we can't really go wrong with stone. It's solid, it's on the floor, it's all good. You cannot have problems with it at all. And if you attach anything to stone, everything stays blue. As you can see, all this wood structure around my tower is blue. Blue, 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 blue. And that means it's just the strongest it's going to be. Having blue like that high up, by the way, is ideal. Right, so if you ever get a chance, yeah, stone, hit it into the stone, you'll have blue foundation. You'll have blue everywhere. It's all good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into like, I know we're going to be covering some of the newbie stuff in this game. The reason why is because when you first start, it's all about just trying to do stuff as quickly as possible. And I get it, right? You are literally just trying to survive. So you probably end up with something like this. All right, this is what I would call a farming house. And the reason why is just because it's literally just to start the game. You need something very quickly, and you're going to build a little house like this. I mean, yours would probably have a little treasure chest in it, so you can hold stuff. But your first job is to put a workshop up and put a roof over it. Why not make that part of your main build? I've done this before where I've built a little house and I've put the workshop inside with my stuff. You can have a workshop, your bed, a fire, and a storage container in quite a small area. And actually what I'll do is I'll show you now. Okay, so when you first start, you're probably looking at a little house like this. Bed, fire, all good. Now what you want to do is you want to sort of like, you want to shunt in as much in here as possible when you first start the game, right? So you're going to want to build your crafting bench, so you want to squeeze that in here. Then you want to squeeze a little chest in here as well. You'll probably be building this one as well. So there you go, you've got your bare necessities and a house. And from there you'd be expanding out and seeing where you go. And that's not necessarily a bad idea. That's a good way to start. But when it comes down to the foundational side of things, it does get a little bit like annoying. So you've probably built something that resembles a floor space a little bit like this, straight onto the floor, and you've just gone, I need to build a wall, I need to build a wall, and you've just sort of built a wall and you're all good. Okay, that's probably what you've probably built straight away. And that's fine. And loads of people survive on that, and I haven't got a problem with it at all. But if you were later on, when you're sitting there going, so how am I going to make this better for myself? I want to put in this as well, but I don't know how. So one thing I would do, personally, is build something like this. This is a house that I've been experimenting with. A lot of the, in fairness, I'm going to be completely honest, a lot of the houses I tend to build are wooden. I don't tend to build a lot of stone. Reason why is just because I use those for bigger houses. And this is how I would have normally done like the foundation. I'd block it all out so it's got a lot more like stability, but you get this sort of annoying wood pattern through your floors because these are mainly for rafters, and you get it through there and it's like it sort of ruins the way that you want to put things up. And you want that clean looking floor, but you want it to be on a stable base, right? And that's pretty much how I see things. Now you can do the whole like the world of cubism, and it's generally not a bad way to go. Cubism in this game is very, very common. A lot of people use it right at the start of the game, and a lot of people sort of get on with it, and that's how you would normally build stuff. But would there be a better way of doing cubes? I mean, the plus side is you do get like 4 nodes to build off, and It's always a bonus when you've got extra nodes to build from. But the downside is it raises up your property quite high, unless you're going to dig this into a hole and use that top layer as the actual base foundation. You're going to have to build a set of stairs, you're going to have to go up, and it's like, do you really have to bother? Unfortunately, that's just the way this game is. It's, you can either build like this or on the floor or however. Now what I did was I cut this in half. Now the reason why I cut this in half more than anything was because when it came to building, I like to have my buildings just off the floor. So if I am building on a slightly uneven surface, I don't have to mess around with the floor going through the bottom too much. But I wanted to raise my house off the floor so I could bury some of the imperfections of life. So I could sit there and go, well, I don't really want that to happen. I don't really want this to happen. And that's fair enough. So this is how I would build my houses from now. Like for wooden foundation, this is how I do it. The reason why I would do it like this, in all honesty, is because number one, I don't have to raise up the land so much just to put a fire in there. Number two, it covers the floor, and if the floor's all lumpy and horrible, I can still cover it up. I can still put a tile on top of this, and I can be like, hey, you're not going to see my floor. It's all gone, and it's good. Now, the other reason why I would build at this height is because at this height it's still really stable. On the floor you don't have to have a lot going for you. It's just keep it alive. Now if I want to extend this floor, all I have to do is take out the two sides or wherever I want to build, and I'm just going to show you with this one here. So what I would do is I would do this, and I'd build my little square again. But I wouldn't be using the cross member that goes through the middle of the actual build. I'd be keeping it real straight. Like this. And we will click on... Oh no, we won't click on... We will click on this. And that's like really good. Let me just get rid of this one. Now with this, as you can see, it's still supported, but we're not using that middle section. We're not using this middle board anymore, but we are still sort of floating, and it's still really, really stable. Now what I want to do is I want to extend my floor. So this means I'm going to have to get the cross members back out. We're going to build a rectangle under here. We're going to join it all up under here, but we're going to be using less and less to keep it supplied in the middle. Now we're going to put our bum there, bum there, bum there, and then we'll just do the outside. Okay, so that's all good. Now let's just get rid of this and see how that... As you can see, everything is still green, still relatively good, but there's no floorboards in the middle. We can now just walk around on a flat floor and be happy. Now the reason why this is happening is because of what we've done in the middle. That member there is keeping everything from floating, and it's solid on the ground. It basically just means that that little section there, even though you won't see it, causes a lot more strength in your builds when it comes to a foundation. And this basically helps you, instead of having floorboards that are like, instead of having the rafters that are flowing through the building, it all looks a bit smoother. Hence this build. Now what I've done here is I've brought the flooring up. I've got the supports in the center of all of these floorboards, but I do have a genuinely flat floor with no major problems. And how I put the fire in was I raised the ground around the back and put the fire in. Now if I wanted to cover this up, I could. All I would do is I would just build a couple of bits of wall, and I would basically just cover everything up and be happy. Now I'd obviously extend out my build and make it like so you don't see it at all. So I would probably do something a bit like this, put another floor on top of it, and just fill it over. But then at the end of the day, it's part of the aesthetic. You don't really need to cover it up, but it's up to you. But it gives you that little bit of like freedom from like clipping through the floor or having problems sorting stuff out, and it gives you a little bit more of a raised area. And this is good for like not just building like your house, but it comes for like building aesthetic stuff as well. Like guard towers, you can build those on that sort of foundation. You can build like bridges and things like that on that sort of foundation, because you're raising it off the floor a bit and you can keep it on a straight line. It's all that joys, and sort of at the end of the day it does help. But it still won't outdo stone at all. Stone is still the strongest stuff you can possibly get. when it comes to a roundhouse, your foundation is whatever you put underneath the floor. Now, obviously, it's a roundhouse, but what I did here was off of the main pole in the middle, I put a foundation line of core wood, doing the whole thing underneath. And this basically means that the core wood is on the floor. It's also attached to the main beam in the middle, which serves as a main structural point for all the roof. But it also helps all of the floor staying in the right area and being able to like be supportive of anything you're going to put into it. This is something else you have to take into consideration, like weight-bearing materials and so on and so forth. And as you go through making like bigger and bigger and better structures, you have to think, is it going to affect your build by any? And again, that's why I build the way I do. I've been faffing around with this for some time. And the reason why I've been doing this is because I've always wanted to like try things differently. A lot of people are basically, oh, I'm going to build a house, I'm going to build this, but you know, the first thing I built on when I came here was I built over a henge just because I could. And in order to do this was a pain in the bum. It really was, because my foundation is up there. I have no foundation here. This is all on the ground, and that's the reason why it's so low. Here on the ground, I haven't got any base foundation. I literally just flattened the ground out, because this part was just for a workshop. That is my main foundation line, and I had to find a way of doing it. I attached it to the stone, I attached it to everything, and that's why it's so big, because it had to have all of these points of structure. But when it comes down to a thing like this, it's literally just a stone floor. Everything on here is dead solid. Everything in here is as good as it's going to be, and I'm not going to get it any better. And that's the difference between sort of just building at the beginning and sticking floor on the floor, and sort of just really considering your build and trying to do something a little bit different instead of just hoping it will be all right. This gives you an extra bit of protection. If something does come up and attack this, instead of just taking out one wall, they have to go through your foundation, they have to go through 4 or 5 different layers, and it'll just get more annoying for them, and by the end of it, they've been slaughtered by you because you got pissed off with them smacking the side out of your hedge. And that's the difference between building just one thing on the floor or just building several layers. So you've got all of these extra protective layers when it comes to later on in the game. Because later on in the game, you get mobbed. Unfortunately, it does happen to the best of us. I've had to protect my island several times from invading trolls, and just everything in general just comes in and tries to blow it up. So yeah, keep this in mind for like later on in the game as well. A stronger foundation keeps your base better off. You've got a little bit more time to go and rescue it before some smegging enemy comes along and smacks you up a bit. So yeah, hopefully guys, this has helped you. This has just made you think maybe I need to think about the structure of my house a bit more before sort of carrying on into the wilderness and hoping that everything will just be all right. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been Hybridsteel. If you have liked this video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button below for all of the updates. And I'll be back with a brand new video, live stream, or whatever else I do on this channel. Until then, guys, I want to say thank you very much. Peace out, have fun, and enjoy everything you guys do. Bye-bye for now.